partly because they're scholars, but even more because they're young. Your ways of spreading message is, far more effective. I would sit and read a newspaper. You're done with the equivalent of a newspaper in the first 30 seconds after you get up. So I would absolutely encourage younger generation to take on that, sense of mission. Part of the answer is here.
Today is one of the most memorable days in the history of India.
Today, India assumes presidency of the G20.
This is a great honor as well as a great responsibility for all of us.
We have more than 1,200 students already online with us, and so many are in this room as we are seeing.
And make sure that India is projected as a country of peace and happiness.
And the G20 presidency will give us an opportunity to demonstrate to the world that, this is India. After 75 years, we have arrived at this situation. In the next 25 years, these are the possibilities we can do.
The vibrant startup ecosystem in the country is evidence that sky is the limit as far as the youth are concerned.
We are one of the youngest countries in the world. While countries across the world are aging, we have a young population.
The whole world is looking at India, India's youth with hope, as they are the growth engines of the world.
We look forward to ideas and support from our universities, faculties and young mind to make our endeavors more fruitful. Thank you, Jay.
What can be some of the tangible outcomes we can expect as India is taking over the presidency of G20?
New ambitious quantified goal for climate finance. We are talking of enhancing the mandate of multilateral development banks. We are talking of accelerating progress on SDGs.
The SDGs have steered India's development vision since its very inception. What does India propose to concretely do to address the progress of the Vision 2050 or the Agenda 2030 with suffered lag due to the pandemic?
The whole challenge in achievement of SDGs are twin, finance and technology. And on both of them, particularly on the finance side, enhancing mandate of the MDBs, looking at international institutions for the 21st century where credit and funding can be available for SDGs.
So is it correct to say that this G20 presidentship will be a catalyst to transform India into a superpower and a developed country much ahead of our own estimated targets?
India's good standing, the fact that people know we are an independent-minded country, we will do what is right, we will do what is good for the world. I think that will stand us in very good stead, and I'm very confident we will overcome the...
அந்த இது ஓப்பன் பண்ணி வச்சுக்கோங்க. அடுத்து ப்ளே பண்ணுற மாதிரி இருக்குது. தமிழ்தாய் வாழ்த்து எடுத்துருது. தமிழ்தாய் வாழ்த்து இருக்குன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். இந்த ஒரு நிமிஷம் நான் பார்க்குறேன். இதான தீம் தானே? ஆமாம் ஆமாம். அதுவும் தமிழ்தாய் வாழ்த்தும் இது பண்ணி வச்சுக்கோங்க. தமிழ்தாய் வாழ்த்து எந்த ஒரு ஈவெண்ட்னாலும் தமிழ்தாய் வாழ்த்து முதல்ல எடுத்து வச்சு ஓகேவா? ஏன்னா எப்போவுமே வந்து அது ஃபஸ்ட்டு ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணுறப்போ அது போட்டு தான் ஆரம்பிக்கணும். சரி, அது வந்து கவர்மெண்ட் ரூல் அது இருக்குது. லைவ் ஆரம்பிச்சாச்சு. லைவ் ஆரம்பிச்சாச்சு. Media has come. So we will at the end of the event. They were saying they won't wait until 1 p.m. So who do they want to talk to? Anybody who can speak on this. Anybody who can speak. Okay.
Yeah, but
Can you ask them to wait for 10 minutes?
10 minutes is fine. 10 minutes
So
is fine.
I'll at least start the event and then come back.
Yeah. So once you start the event, I will be here because I have to take notes. So I'll tell them to wait there. You can go on. Raj team will know.
Sure.
Yeah, so I will come back. You will come out in 10 minutes. Yes, sir.
Team is ready, sir. Tamil Thai alternate.
Tamil Thai alternate. அது அவங்க வச்சிருக்காங்களா சொல்லுங்க. வச்சிருக்காங்க. இல்லை இப்போ தான் ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணுவோம்.
Good morning, everybody. So, thank you all for coming. And first of all, we apologize for starting a little late. The event was supposed to start by 10:30, so we are running a little late. But thank you for your patience. And I can see that there is a lot of enthusiastic people who are attending, and the hall is full, which is a very positive sign. So let us start the event. So as the first thing, we will have an invocation with Tamil Thai Varthu. I request everybody to please stand up.
Let me check with them. I don't know if the poster, this is the video. This will be the logo. These are the videos. Logo reveal. Theme.
நீராறும் கடலொடுத்த நிலமடந்தை கெழிலொழுகும் சீராறும் வதனமென திகழ்பரத கண்டமிதில் எக்கணமும் அதில் சிறந்த திராவிடனல் திருநாடும் தக்க சிறு திரை முதலும் தரித்தனரும் திலகமுமே அத்திலக வாசனை போல் அனைத்துலகும் இன்பமுற எத்திசையும் புகழ் மணக்க இருந்த பெரும் தமிழனங்கே உன் சீரிழமை திறம்பியந்து செய்ய மறந்து வாழ்த்துதுமே வாழ்த்துதுமே வாழ்த்துதுமே.
Right? You have that G20 branding. Can you just put it there? அந்த இதை ஓப்பன் பண்ணுங்க, போஸ்டரை போடுவீங்க. அடுத்து நம்ம போஸ்டரை ஓப்பன் பண்ணி வச்சுக்கோங்க. பேக்ரவுண்டுக்கு உங்களுக்கு அனுப்பிடணும்ல, அதுதான் ரமேஷ் அனுப்புனது தான். சரி பாப்போம் அடுத்து அந்த வீடியோ So welcome to the event. So this is a G20 University Connect event which is being organized at IIT Madras. So as the first part of the event, we will start with the theme of Indian Presidency. The official video will be played now for everybody to view.
India, home to 1.3 billion people, is a confluence of religions, traditions, and customs. A thriving global center of technology and the world's largest democracy. As one of the oldest civilizations in the world with a rich cultural heritage and diversity, and as the 5th largest economy in the world, India is proud to assume the presidency of G20. As the country blooms into a new era, we look to another poignant symbol for humanity to emerge victorious from challenges. The lotus, the national flower of India, represents our history and culture and symbolizes spirituality, fruitfulness, wealth, and knowledge. And that's the inspiration for India's G20 logo design. The design, rendered in saffron, white, green, and blue, is drawn from the national flag of India. The 7 petals in the logo signify the 7 seas and the coming together of 7 continents at G20 India 2023. Sitting above the lotus is a representation of the earth, reflecting India's pro-planet approach to life and seeing the world as one family. From this, we derive the theme for G20 India 2023. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, one earth, one family, one future. A theme that brings the G20's focus on shared global growth, while being in harmony with nature. G20 India 2023. One earth, one family, one future. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam.
So, first off, I would like to invite all the dignitaries to the dais. First, I would like to invite Professor Pratap Haridas, who is the Dean Academic Courses. Then I would like to invite Professor Subramania Raju from Pondicherry University. Professor Subhash from our Humanities Department, and the chief guest and the main resource person for the event, Professor Chari. So, I'd like to invite Professor Pratap to give the welcome address.
எல்லோருக்கும் வணக்கம். Good morning everyone. Very happy to see all of you here. As you are aware from news, you would have seen that India has assumed leadership of G20 for this year, and So one of the questions we should always ask ourselves is, in the news you hear India is doing something. India has achieved this success. India has achieved that. So many things we hear in the news, right? A lot of very good news about India. So first question is, who or what is this India? Right? We just read in the newspaper, India did this. This is what. Who is India? Who is India? What is India? Things like that, right? So the real answer is all of us are India, right? So anytime you see news about India anywhere, it actually reflects on us. It is we are contributing to it in some way. In different ways, we are contributing. Whatever you are doing, you are contributing. You are contributing. So when India grows, it is because of our contributions, contributions of each of you. Today, in future, all your contributions will count, and it all adds up to what we call as India and what India has accomplished. So this event is to increase awareness of what G20 is and what it means, and what it means for us to be leaders of G20 for the next year. As you know, already there are many fields where we are either very close to the top of what the world has to offer, or at the top of what the world has to offer. We also have many unique features. We have a very diverse population, which is not really true in many other countries. Every country has its own diversity, but we have diversity in a manner that is not really seen anywhere else. We respect that diversity. We enjoy the diversity, I would say, and that adds to how we go about things. So when we assume leadership of G20, I think it's not simply about putting some number out there and saying, this is what we did and that is what we did. I think we bring a certain culture to the G20, and therefore I think we provide something very positive, very unique to G20 through our leadership. So this event, as I said, is to increase awareness of what is going to happen as part of our G20 leadership. Dr. Sheshadri Chari, who is the main speaker today, will be guiding you through all the various activities that we'll be involved in, and what it means and what is the significance of everything that we do. So again, I thank you all for coming here. I hope when you leave, you will have much more idea of what all of this is about. So next time you see the newspaper, you will have more connection to what it is that we are talking about. So thank you and good morning to you.
Thank you, Professor Pratap. So our director, Professor Kamakoti, has been very actively involved in various G20 activities. So in fact, next week we are having a huge seminar where all the different countries' secretaries from the education department will be here at IIT Madras, spending an entire day for brainstorming sessions with panel discussions to see how an international collaboration can benefit using digital technologies and leveling the playing field when it comes to education. So IIT Madras has very actively been involved in taking this G20 collaboration very in a prestigious way and taking it forward. So we look forward to contributing to this, and so today it's an immense pleasure to have such experts who can throw light on what this collaboration means and what India's presidency holds for the world as such. Right? So as India leads the way, we want to see how what new great heights we are looking forward to achieve. So in this regard, I am very happy to welcome Dr. Sheshadri Chari, who is a member of the governing board and governing council of RIS, and he is one of the leading experts in the field of policy building. So we request him to come and give a talk. So considering that we have a lot of people looking for interactions and question answer session, so we request all the speakers to have about 15 to 20 minutes of a talk, so that we can have more of an interactive session which will be more informative for everybody in the audience. Thank you. So please, Professor Chari.
No slides. எல்லோருக்கும் வணக்கம். தமிழில் பேசலாமா இங்கிலீஷில் பேசலாமா? If I speak in Tamil, there will be so many people whose mother tongue is Tamil may not understand. இங்கே தமிழ் தெரியவே தெரியாது, தமிழ் பேசினாலும் புரியாது, அப்படி எவ்வளோ பேர் இருக்காங்க? எப்படியா யாராவது கையை தூக்கினா மாட்டிப்பாங்க. But anyway, in the G20, I'll switch on to English, but since I am not an expert in English language also, I will I'll use certain words which will be as simple so that I don't have to explain those words. So, our Professor Pratap just explained about G20. We must have seen this photograph many times. Nowadays, a lot of popularity it has gained. So, there are two words actually, G and 20. In fact, when I was traveling, I was traveling from city to city speaking to students on G20. So I landed up in Bombay. Nowadays it is called Mumbai. Like our city, Chennai. Formerly it was called Madras. And before that some other name? You may not probably were all, none of you were probably born, I can say. And at that time, there was people used to call Madras as Patnam. Patnam means city. Because it was the only city. Other places were small. So similarly, Bombay. So I got into the taxi, and as we were going, there was a board, G20. So I asked him, what is this? He said, யாரோ ஒரு 20 G வந்திருந்தாங்க, அவங்கெல்லாம் போயிட்டாங்க, இப்போ இன்னும் கொஞ்சம் நேரத்தில் இந்த போர்டெலாம் எடுத்துருவாங்க. So he understood that G20 means there were 20 Gs. But if you don't look into the other side of it, his ignorance apart, what he said was actually correct. G in this represents so many things. Either it can be government or it can be even great. Like in United Nations we have got P5. P5 means powerful 5 countries. 1945-47. Then we have G7. G7 means 7 great countries of the world. So why these things were started? You all know why United Nations was started. There was a very big world war. That was called World War I. After the World War I, all countries lost. In any war, governments don't lose. It is the people who lose. It is like budget. Government don't pay tax, people pay tax. Similarly, in war, people lose life. So all governments came together and then they said, it is very bad, we should not fight anymore. So we will, whatever differences we have, we will sit together and negotiate and resolve. So they formed what is called a League of Nations. League of Nations. So that no more war. But what happened? Immediately after forming the League of Nations, there was another war. That is World War II. Nobody could prevent the wars. So they said this League of Nations is useless. So what we should do? Fine. Now what we will do is, we will come to, after the war was over, they all again came together. They said, okay, now we will not fight. So United Nations organization was started. So when United Nations organization was started, they decided that if there is a war, why there should be a war? Because there is some differences of opinion. War is what? War is because there is no rule of law. Suppose we saw so much of traffic jam. A distance of 2 kilometers, it took almost 25 minutes for me to come. Why that happens? Because every car wants to go first. And then when the car is going, one scooter fellow comes. Luckily the scooter fellow doesn't go above the car. Otherwise someday that too also will happen. And then there is one cycle fellow, and then somebody is crossing the road. So everybody wants to do something, but nobody wants to follow the rules. So when nobody follows the rules, there is conflict. The conflict happens on the road, in traffic, the conflict happens between countries also. So wherever there is no rule of law, there is conflict. So rule of law is very important. So rule of law means, who will make the law? Suppose I make the law. I am the supreme leader of this hall. So I say I will make the law. I will say everybody who is sitting here should face that wall. That is law, because I am the boss. Will it work? Is it good for other people? It is not good. Or I will say, if you want to come inside the hall, you have to pay 10 rupees. There may be people who don't want to pay 10 rupees. I will say, no, you have to pay 10 rupees and you have to come and sit inside. Even if you don't want to listen to me, you have to sit. That is what is happening now, no? There may be somebody who doesn't want to listen to me, but you have to sit, no? So that is rule of law. So rule of law means there must be a consensus on what should be the rule. We cannot have a rule of law decided by one person. So they said United Nations will sit together and form rule of law. But even after formation of United Nations, no war took place. You think 1945 to 2023, can we say no war has taken place? Everybody is very peaceful, saintly, Om Namah Shivaya. Is it happening? No way. There are so many conflicts even happening now. Between countries, within countries, so many conflicts. So conflicts continues. And conflict affects people. There was a very big conflict after 1945. After the Second World War ended, after United Nations was formed also, there was another war, the Third War. The Third War is called what? The Cold War. They said the Cold War. Cold War means it is a war, but not fighting with bullets, guns. It is a war in which two countries were fighting. And which were those two countries? They were not just countries. They represented certain ideas. On the one side, there was democratic countries of the West, who were wealthy, developed. They had lots and lots of arms and ammunitions. They thought, we are the most powerful country in the world. Whatever I say, the world should listen. Technologically, they were very progressive. So on the one side was the American representatives, and on the other side was the Russian. Russia was also a very big country, very strong country, ideologically very strong. Communism was the idea. That was called USSR, Union of Soviet Socialist Republic. So they had more than 35-40 countries under them, very strong. So they said, who are you to tell me what to do and what not to do? I am powerful. America said, no, I am powerful. So they went on fighting. Wherever there was a conflict, both the countries will go. Russia will help some people, America will help some people. So the whole world was divided between the conflict of these two people. So the world was divided. On the one side, there were some countries who were saying America is very good. What is America saying is very correct. There were some countries which were saying, no, Russia is very good. What Russia is doing is correct. So the world was divided between two poles, two groups. There were some countries which said, look, you are also right, he is also right. You are also wrong, he is also wrong. So, we are neither with you nor with them. They were called non-aligned countries. They were not aligned with anybody. India was one of them. We said, why should we say that you are right and he is wrong? The question is not whether you are right or he is right. The question is, what should be right and what should both of you do? You have got so many weapons, you have got money, you have got everything. But are your people happy? Do you have a house for all? Do you have medicine for all? Whatever technology you have got, have you given to anybody? There is this one rule in America. It is called BIS, that is Bureau of Industrial Standards. So they set the rules and regulations. What can be given to the outside world and what should not be given to the outside world. So there is what is called the MICR, Missile Export Technology Regime. So they knew how to develop missile. In fact, Russia was the first country to send a human being to the moon, to the space, outer space. Then USA followed. You must all heard of Yuri Gagarin. Russia was the first country to send a dog to the outer space. So much developed they were. So there was an intense competition between these two countries. Technology competition, economic competition, every kind of competition. But did this competition help any other country? It did not help any country. So what they did was, they were talking about the whole world. But whatever technology they had, they kept to themselves. They did not give it to anybody. Long after this, 1945, 50, 60, 70, we all must have heard about supercomputer. When America developed computer, every country wanted to know that technology. But America did not give to anybody. So what India did? India said, fine, you don't give us technology, we will have our own technology. One of the IITs, like we are sitting in the IIT today, Chennai, Madras IIT, Bombay IIT developed its own computer. And today, after 40, 45, 50 years, what is the situation? If Indian engineers, those engineers who studied in IIT, or those engineers who studied in Indian universities, they have gone to America and worked. They are working there. If even 10% of them decide to come back to India, America will shut down. So that is the situation that the world is facing today. India's outlook towards all this problem was what? We never said we should keep everything to ourselves. We said whatever is there, everybody should benefit. In Sanskrit they say, no, sarvepi santu sukhina, sarve santu niramaya. Sarvepi santu sukhina. Everybody should be happy. Sarvepi santu niramaya. Everybody should be healthy. So we saw what happened during pandemic, coronavirus. The whole world was closed. Nobody knew what is this. Nobody knew what this virus is. Nobody could see that virus. The virus was so small that with naked eye we cannot even see the virus. But still the whole world stopped. No movement, nothing. Then everybody wanted to do some solution. So we came up with vaccine. America, there is a company in America, they also came up with vaccine. So people in Africa, poor people, poor countries, they said, look, we cannot pay so much for the vaccine, but we should get treatment. So that company said, sorry, we can't do that. We have done so much research, so much money we have put, and we have spent so much in dollars. How can we give free? We can't give free. India also started working on vaccine. India came out with vaccine. What India said? Part of vaccine we will use for our people, but part of the vaccine we will give to outside world also. So any country which wanted vaccine we gave, and some countries we gave free. That is the outlook. Whatever we have, we should give free. So that sarvepi santu sukhinah sarve santu niramaya. Let everybody be happy. And we keep on developing technology. Why we should develop technology? Why we are all studying? Of course, we should study, we should become graduate, we should get jobs, we should look after our family. But do we stop only with that family? If I say, whatever I get, I should keep. So how much I can eat? I can eat one bowl of rice, I can eat 1 chapati, I can eat 2 puri. But if I got 10 puri, what will I do? I will eat 2, but what about the rest of the 8? I'll just put it and bury it. I won't give it to anybody. That is never our tendency. This is mine, this is yours. That was never our tendency. Our tendency was to always look at the outside world as part and parcel of mine. That was the outlook. I am Nijap Paroveti Gananam Lagu Chetasam. I am Nijap Paroveti. Me, myself, mine. Such language who will use? Gananam Lagu Chetasam. Those with small minds. What we call in Tamil, Kurugiya Manappanmai. Correct? I have written it down. Huh? Kurugiya Manappanmai. What is this? This is mine. Whether I use or not, whether I need chocolate or not, I will keep it in my pocket. I won't give it to anybody. After 2 days, all ants will come and eat the chocolate and go away. So this feeling, I am Nijap Paro Veti Gananam Lagu Chetasam, Udara Charitanam tu. What is Udara Charitanam in Tamil? Parandamanappanmai. Correct? Udara Charitanam tu Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The whole world is one family. That is what our religions also teach. All religion in the world, if you see, they say don't differentiate between people. The whole world is one. The whole earth is one. We are all part and parcel of the earth. Mata Bhumihi Putroham Prithuvyaha. The world is big, one family. We are all part of the world. If anybody else in the world is unhappy, you cannot be happy. If your neighbor has got problems, how can you be very happy? What you do? If he has a problem, you rush to the solved problem. And if you have a problem, your neighbor comes to help you. So this kind of oneness, like there is one family, there is oneness, the world also is one family. This whole universe is one. That is why we say, in case of one earth, one family, one future. So we have got problems because of climate change. Heat is going up in the world, and icebergs which give water is melting. So the sea level is rising. So what happens when the sea level is rising? Countries which are close to the sea will submerge. They say countries like Madagascar, Mauritius, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, probably sometime if the sea level goes up, these countries will go below the sea. It is possible, that is what they say. We all experience tsunami, no? Some of us must have experienced, we were born at that time. What happened in the tsunami? All water came inside. Even up to Chennai bus stand the water came. One tsunami, water came. Pondicherry, water came. So many people died. And water means it is not just trickle. Huge wave of water gone. Everybody is gone. Like that, if there is a huge wave of water, even if the sea rises by 1 centimeter, there are countries which will go below the sea. So if I am living in Himalaya and I will say, oh, what is that? Tamil Nadu, gaya, jane do. Someday Himalaya will also go under the water. So we can never say that one problem in one part of the world is their problem and not my problem, because the whole world is one. So we can never say such things. So that is where India's outlook comes. So when G7 was formed, these 7 countries, they progressed so much. And all progress, money, technology, everything they wanted to keep to themselves. And then they will decide who should get what. They will never give 100% technology to you. They only give 10%. Then after some time another 10%. After some time another 10%. Like that they will give. And what technology they will give? Which is totally redundant. Which is absolutely useless. They will give. Then when India established IITs, India started studying, Indians started progressing. Today, if you see the digital technology, India is using digital technology to such an extent that the use of cash is gone, everybody is using digital technology, which is not there even in very developed countries. We saw during pandemic, what happened during coronavirus. The number of people who died in America and England. England has got their own national medical system where all medicine, all medical treatment is free. Even then, people could not get treatment in England. They suffered. England, France, Italy, USA, all these countries suffered. China is still suffering. Whole world is out of corona. China, they are still talking about corona, how to control. Because they said, we will not buy vaccine from America. We don't want American vaccine. We will develop our own vaccine. But their vaccine did not work. India told China, we will give you vaccine. But they said, no, we don't want. So now they are suffering. Now India is offering. So this attitude of helping others, of treating the whole world as one. All our problems are one. This is one universe. Therefore, the problem of this universe is my problem and I have to find a solution for others. If I find a solution for other people's problem, my problems will also go. That attitude is what represents India. So that is India's world view. We call it India's world view. How to look at the world. Look at the world as one family. That is the theme. Then after G7, many G7 countries also realized there are so many countries which are doing very well. Then G20 started. There was a huge economic problem. The economic problem, because only G7 countries suffered the economic problem. In 2008, 2009, we know the bank failure. Some of the banks failed. Which bank? Not Indian bank, American bank. They failed. They all went belly up. Huge economic crisis. Who came to the help and rescue? Countries like India, Indonesia, Argentina, Brazil, BRICS countries, IPSA countries, they came to the fore. They helped. So then they realized that besides these 7 countries, there are other countries which are very powerful. So G20 slowly emerged. Now what happened in these last 10, 12 years, the growth engine, what we call, the power to grow, the economic engine, there are 4 top economies in the world. USA, China, Japan, India. Out of these 4, except one USA, all the 3 countries are in this part of the world, Asian part of the world, the Eastern world, what they call. Slowly, the economic fulcrum is also changing from west to east. because of Russia-Ukraine war, who is suffering the most? Ukraine is suffering, of course. Russia is also suffering. But European Union is suffering. So now, because they are suffering, they are telling us, oh, why are you buying oil from Russia? Don't buy oil from Russia. All these years they were buying oil from Russia and China and so many countries. That time they did not bother. But now because they are suffering, they are saying don't buy oil from Russia. So the outlook towards the world and the world problems is what is important. So India and other 19 countries, they form G20. The G20 has a message to the world. The message is we all have to grow together. Our problems are not individual problems, they are collective problems. And if there are collective problems, we have to have collective solution. So we have to have a collective solution, and that is the message that India is going to give to the world. So the message that India gives is one earth, one family, one future. So with this message, we are now proceeding. But for this message to go to the outside world and the outside world to believe us, we should prove that we are also a powerful country. We can just put G in front of our name. Great India. To show that we are great, we have to also educationally progress, technologically progress. We have to progress in the field of medicine. We have to progress in the field of art, architecture. Every field that we have, we should progress. Some of us may become doctors, some of us may become engineers, some of us may become so many other things. But whatever we become in our life, we should excel. And excel for what? Not that I should become a great doctor, I should become a great engineer, I should become a great artist. But through my engineering skills, through my medical skills, through my art, through my music, I should be able to give happiness to others. That should be the attitude, and that is the attitude with which India is looking at G20 presidency. That is the point that we are highlighting. So I was just trying to explain the basic idea with which we are approaching. Of course, you people are all very knowledgeable in your own areas, in your own field. So once you start reading these material, you will come to know more about all these things. And we have got in our IIT Humanities Department, we have got people and professors like Professor Prasad, Professor Subhash, Professor Vignesh. They are experts on these subjects. Professor Subramaniam Raju is teaching this subject in Pondicherry University. So one of these days we should get in touch with all these people, and whatever they are writing we read and increase our knowledge so that we are able to participate in all these things freely. Ellarkum again, Panakkam.
Thank you, Dr. Chari, for giving us an overview of the vision with which India has taken up this G20 presidency. So we will move on to the next speaker. So we request Professor Subhash to give a short lecture on how G20 presidency for India is going to play out. Thank you.
Okay, so a very good morning to all of you. Rather, it's getting to the noon. So it's a mix of both morning and noon. So my task has become all the more difficult because Dr. Chari has probably explained all these things in a very, layman's language. So rather, I was just mentioning it to him whether I have overloaded with, many technical informations which may or may not impress you, but fortunately we have a PPT. Probably you can also sort of take a break looking at the PPT itself. So without wasting much of a time, right? So the background already is mentioned by the previous speaker. So what has happened in the global order is like 70s was like a group of few people used to meet up and discuss, and then they decided to, change the global order. Then they decided that these 5 countries were not enough. We needed more and more countries, who also started emerging. So what is actually interesting about the last 20, 30 years, maybe some of you are too young to even identify yourself with many of these things on the slide, is like the last 20, 30 years is like the rise of Asia. So the Asian economies have sort of become the challengers to the West, especially the European countries and the American dominance. So the G5 initially morphed into G7, and then the G7 sort of morphed into what is called as the G20. So G20 are these sort of countries which can, sort of influence the global economic order, the global social order. So many of the pressing problems which the global South faces, especially the developing countries like South Asia or Africa, many of these countries have pressing problems which requires urgent attention. So fortunately, what has happened this year, this is basically a kind of a game changer, India's presidency. And partly because of the fact that those of you who are not aware about what is G20. In fact, on a lighter note, when I said to my mother that I'm going to talk about G20, she asked me the question, what is G20? I said, precisely that's what I'm going to talk today. So this is a kind of a confusion among, both the younger people and the older people. So what is this G20? And what is its significance? The significance of G20 is basically that almost like 75% of the global trade is from these countries. The global income belongs to these top 20 countries. So that is why G20 is a significant group of countries who can actually influence the global policies and the global economic order or the global economic architecture. So what is interesting about G20 is, unlike United Nations, G20 do not have a secretariat or a building where they are operating. This is like a group of nations who comes together informally every year. So what we are going to see in Delhi in 2023, later this year, there is a grand summit, is the 18th one. And the reason why this G20 was, they expanded this was, we had 2 big crises, one in the Asia in the late 90s, and 2008 we had a big financial crisis. So that made these industrialized countries to look up to the other countries for more inclusive growth or more inclusive development. So the organizational structure of the G20s is extremely informal, right? So they just meet in one particular country every year, discusses, there are big declarations made, big commitment made by these countries. So what has happened in 2023 is, last year it was in Indonesia, in Bali. This year it's in India. Next year it's in Brazil. The following year it's in South Africa. So this is the first time the 4 developing countries are going to, assign or get the presidency of the G20. So that is the significance of the G20 from now onwards. So the global South is going to head the presidency, right? Which has never happened in the last, the several years since the G20 was actually formed. So this chair is part of a revolving 3-member management group, where currently India is the presidency. It includes Indonesia, and the next presidency is the Brazil. So even though it is a very informal forum, initially the focus of this G20 was bringing financial stability, because global crisis of 2008, those who are in the school probably may not follow me, but those who are in IIT, then they understand 2008 crisis and the magnitude. So the agenda was how to bring some financial stability post 2008 crisis. But later on, they realized that it was not about finance. We need to, bring in a lot of other issues into the G20. So therefore, it got expanded to trade issues. It has, in fact, now the focus is more on climate change, women empowerment, agriculture, digitalization. Probably the biggest challenge of the South countries means the developing countries, is the problem of employment, and then how to deal with the global crimes and terrorism. So the ambit of G20 has moved on from just looking at the financial order towards more developmental issues. So the Brisbane summit actually emphasized the need of emphasizing on the global issue of climate change, right? And also they created a lot of efforts to tackle the problem of multinationals, evading taxes. A lot of big companies don't pay taxes, right? They are located in tax haven. So how to deal with them? All these things have been tackled. So I'm not going to go into what each of the summit did. So what the last summit and how India is going to continue that is the G20 declaration, which happened in Bali last year, is of inclusive growth, innovation, employment generation, and sustainable development. This was the joint declaration of the G20 leaders in Indonesia last year. So G20 presidencies, if you see, some of the critics say that it is actually paying some lip service. It doesn't do anything, it doesn't bring much bigger change. But some of the achievements are basically in terms of the global economic governance. I said controlling the international taxation, right? They have some agenda related to it. Rationalizing, or how to get the countries, get out of debt issues. So these are some of the the achievements of the previous G20 presidencies. So G20 India, which will happen in 9th and 10th. So the build-up of the G20 summit is what we are witnessing today. Right? Like this, there are so many meetings planned across India to spread awareness about what is G20. So next time when you hear G20, not like what he said, it's not the G of G20, it's the group of 20 we are actually talking about. And incidentally, what is interesting, which is actually caught because we are part of G20 celebrations, is incidentally India is also assuming the presidency of the UN Security Council, which is also a big event. Then we have the chair of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization till September 23. These are two bigger things which India is going to hold, right? And the Economist in 2020 classified India as an outstanding economic performer. So I don't need to tell you all these things. It is pretty well known. So what is important here is this the time or the moment for India to sort of change the economic order, okay, or the economic transformation of the southern countries? So if you look at the priority issues, what are the issues what our policy makers are going to sit and discuss for the next 1 year is going to be cutting across several themes. Okay, I'm not going to talk about each of these themes which are listed. All of them has great relevance for India, but probably what is relevant for those of you who are sitting here is they have an empowerment group which looks at what is called the youth. There's a specific committee which is going to look at, or they already have a group which is going to look at, it is called as Y20, which is part of G20. Okay, so they will be focusing on what is called as what is the pressing need of the youth. Okay, because of the paucity of time, I'm just skipping some of the slides. What is the competitive advantage for India is the youth bulge, right? So this diagram actually tells you that if you look at the average age of the population among all the different countries, India has an advantage. Our average age of the population is only 25 years. We are an extremely young country, so that means that we can do a lot to the world. Right? That's what is called as the young bulge. So Y20 is going to discuss more about what the youth can do, or the policies what the youth can suggest. Right? So one of the issues which most of you are going to face, I'll just focus only on this issue and then stop it because most of you are restless. Okay, so knowing the reality, what is going to be affecting your life for the next, many decades to come is the Industry 4.0 technology, or what is the skill set which is required for you to, enter into the job market. So under Y20, they are going to discuss about various issues related to, reskilling, skilling, right? About the gig economy, the startup ecosystem, then how to make the traditional industries part of the Industry 4.0. So one particular achievement of India, because our Dean also talked about the need of digital economy and the importance of the digital technology which plays a crucial role. So what India has done is we have created some open source systems which can be used by the global south. For example, most of you are familiar with this, right? We have experienced this. More and more people opening bank accounts. But that's not enough. It needs to be inclusive. All of us opening bank accounts doesn't mean anything. Do we have the power to operate those things independently? That's what the Women Empowerment Committee is going to discuss. Make it more inclusive. How to empower the women, right? So which is also part of the Y20, the Youth 20, which is going to be discussed in much detail for the next 1 year and beyond. So if you look at the open source, the importance of open source is basically the unified payments interface. I'm sure all of you are sitting here uses UPI systems, right? So if you look at the UPI transactions data for 2022, the UPI transactions exceed 7.8 billion. So that is the intensity of the usage. And then what is interesting about UPI is it's not dominated by one player. Okay, there are multiple players. This is more of kind of a very competitive system which we have created. So, complex challenges are there, right? The gender equity needs to be taken into account. So, when you are using UPI, what is important is regulatory safeguards. Why many people still don't use the digital is because we are terrified that our money will be stolen by someone else, right? So, the G20 is going to look at how these markets, they are going to regulate it or how to be regulated. All these things will be discussed in the next 1 year. Okay, so I am just quickly running through. Many of these things are extremely important. But what is interesting from IIT's point of view, what IIT can give to the people who have come from outside is basically we can help you to reskill or skill yourself. For example, a lot of discussion happens about the impact of fourth industrial revolution. Because sometimes you read some reports which are telling that almost 55% of our jobs will be gone because of the automation which is going to happen in a big way. So in order to be futuristic, what we need is we need to skill or reskill yourself. So you must have seen that in the last 2-3 years, a lot of open source platforms have come up. For example, India, IIT started the NPTEL program, which is highly successful. We have the massive open, it's part of the MOOC, okay, open course. So anybody can enroll, you successfully get a certificate which is accepted, across India or globally. So this is one way of, reaching the masses, the open courses. That's going to be the order of the day, right? So more and more digital platforms are required so that we achieve this equity. And then what we will expect from the G20 is basically they are going to bring out something which India has learned in the last many years, how this can be spread to the rest of the global south, right? How India can actually help the global south to, get these benefits too. So with this, probably given the paucity of the time, let me just thank you for your patience. And of course, I couldn't say many of the things which I wanted to say because of the paucity of time, but thank you for your patience and then looking forward to some interaction.
So next, thank you, Professor Subhash. So as a faculty with a strong humanities background, he has given us a lot to think about and how G20 can contribute. So I'm sure that the questions you asked today and the interaction we are going to have is going to play a role in forming these policies as well. So next we have Professor Subramania Raju from Pondicherry University, who has extensive experience in international relations. We request him to come and give a brief introduction about the field. Thank you.
Vanakkam, good morning to everyone. Being a last speaker, I have two difficulties. One is after listening to Professor Sheshadri, I am unable to look at the space for me to give my presentation. The second difficulty I have is that the organizers asked me to reduce my presentation from 15 minutes to 10 minutes. And being a teacher, you know very well, the students understand how teacher goes on. In the next class, the teacher will be waiting for the entering into the room. So you know the difficulty I have when I'm in IIT Chennai. So please understand my difficulty and bear with me, and I will try to confine to the time given to me. So when we are talking about G20, how it matters to India, this is the fundamental question we have now. In what way it is going to be really helpful to us being a part of G20. And G20 is one which is very, very important because it represents 80% of the world's GDP and 75% of the world trade and 60% of the population. Thereby we look at that G20 is very important. It is a very influential institution, or it is an influential forum for global economic development. And it consists of developed countries and emerging economies, whereby we look at how India can play a very significant role. And it is something where we look at India is not a developed country, but it has to engage with the developed countries in the part of as a member of G20. And India got the presidency by rotation. So can we say this by rotation it comes, so let it take it easy? It is not that, because Indian Prime Minister is looking at that this forum should not be as a discussion forum or talking shop or something talking about. We need to take it very sincerely and seriously, this opportunity to be taken into reality and make it somewhere to feel by the rest of the world how India is important for the rest of the world. And also we talk about this is the opportunity for us not only to confine to G20, but also beyond G20, how India could play significant role in the near future. And we have taken this presidency at the time when world is witnessing with different challenges. Maybe global supply chain crisis, geopolitical crisis, debt crisis, or COVID, or international disaster. We have recently witnessed the war between Russia and Ukraine, which makes us to think about whether there is a rules-based order, whether there is a world order, whether there is going to be anarchy in the world, how world is going to sustain with the stability, with the security, with the development, with the prosperity. This is something in one part of the world is having a problem. It will also have impact on other parts. So this is somewhere we look at Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. This is somewhere we have to bring this 5,000 years ago, this notion, this idea of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam needs to be, again, we have to look how it is very important, not necessarily to India, but to the rest of the world. And this is the time for us to propagate, to articulate to the rest of the world how one family, oneness is very, very important for us. But there are difficulties in G20 because there are contradictions, there are, look at contradictions or divergence of interest between the countries which are members of G20. But how India is going to play an important role, that is something very important for us, because India is the country which is we have seen that our society is a consultative society, where we always believe in consultation, we are looking for negotiation, we have differences, but we live together, we work together, we develop together, and this is something very important for us, that we are in a position to reach different countries, whether it is developing countries or underdeveloped countries or major economies, and we look at this, the major powers are looking at India. What for? Not because India is a major economy, but it is something where India is in a position to articulate our values, our ethics, and the way we practice, the way we, have respected the international law or something. So this is some of the strengths which we have. We need to propagate, articulate, or navigate to the rest of the world. I think that is something very important, and this is a trust deficiency in the world. Now this is something where we need to have, we have that ability to, navigate this trust between the states. Unless we have trust, it's very difficult to look at the world order, and that is what our strength. This is the time for us to look at. That is something we have to navigate. And also we look for multilateral engagements, which is necessarily to be seen as looking for stability, security, safety, prosperity, etc., etc. And also India is seen as the fastest growing economy. And also when you're talking about fastest growing economy, it is rising peacefully. It is not, preventing any country to rise. And we also, the Prime Minister is also talking about Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, or is talking about security and growth for all in the region, or one world, one sun, one grid, or one earth, one family, one future. And when you're talking about this, this is something where we're talking about the kind of the contribution we are, showing to the world is something very, very important for us, because when you look at GHG emissions, as this previous speaker, Professor Chari, was talking about, you look at the rise of sea level, what would be the future of the countries which are coastal states or which are going to be on the coast. I think that is something where we are talking about the climate change and link up with the greenhouse gases or rise of sea level. When you look at energy security, we cannot talk about green energy or climate change without referring to the energy security, because most of the energy resources are contributing to the emissions of GHGs. So there is a kind of a link between these three phases in which we have to discuss. And when you're talking about climate change, our contribution to GHG emissions is 3%, but if you look at Russia, China, or US or EU, talking about their percentage of emissions are more than what we do it. But they are trying to tell us what to do, what not to do. But that is the time for us. This is the time for us to tell this is not the way we are going to listen to them, and we are no way inferior to them. At the same time, we are not superior to anyone. And everyone should respect others. This is somewhere we need to look at. And also, when you're talking about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the Prime Minister is talking about one world, one sun, one grid. You look at how that is very important for us. Though we are not part of the problem of GHG emissions or climate change, but still we take it as essentially we have to be responsible for solving the problem, how to mitigate the GHG emissions, because one sun, one world, one grid is going to be a kind of going to bring 140 countries to come together to use solar energy. And that is something going to be a big contribution to the India. And that is something where we are talking about, we practice and we preach. And this is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, where we are talking about it. And the electricity, which is a major contribution to, GHG emissions, which are now going to be looking at how non-fossil fuels to be used by us so that we can reduce these GHG emissions. And also we are in a position to tell the Western countries to tell about what we are. And Western countries also realize that the importance of India, because we have a stable government, we have free scam, and also the countries are now not talking about, earlier used to talk about Kashmir is a big issue. Any country in the world, they're talking about Kashmir issue in India. But now you look at the voice of the countries, particularly the West is not talking about the Kashmir issue. And you look at the kind of this tourism is jumping in Kashmir. Now look at these. This is the way we look at the countries are looking at us. They are expecting us to do something because we are the one who could be able to engage with every country in the world, including China. And that is something where we need to look at. Or we are able to tell China, or either Doklam, or Ladakh, or Arunachalam, or even Pakistan. Pakistan nowhere in the picture now. Earlier we used to have Pakistan is a kind of a problem for us, but we are not able to now look at Pakistan. So look at that. This is the way we have to look at how we can think about what we are, how we can see the different India, new India in a different perspective, and thereby we are looking at how that could be, because we have 1/6 of world community, 1/6 of world humanity we have, and we are here to tell the rest of the world what are our strengths. That is something very important. And looking at the gathering here, most of the young people here, this is the purpose of having this. That is what you look at, engaging young minds. I think that is something very important for us, because youth is our future, youth is our strength, youth is our hope. And we have, as mentioned by the previous speaker, about the world is aging, but India is becoming young, and our hope is you, and youth is going to determine the future of India, and thereby we are looking at how young people are going to work for the future of India. So, thank you for your kind patience.
So, thank you, Professor Subramania Raju. So, we will open the floor for questions. So, if students have any questions for the experts, we will be happy to take some questions and try to answer them. So, we request you to raise your hands, and we will try to pass along a mic. Yeah. So, please. Yeah, you can please directly ask your questions to the experts, and they will answer.
Sir, so glad hearing that India has got its presidency for G20 this year. As students, moreover as citizens of India, how can we engage and take part in this on a daily basis, or something to take this to the next level and make most use of this opportunity?
We take every question.
So, can we go one by one, or do you want to? Yeah, we can go one by one. Yeah, I think it will be better.
Thank you. A very interesting question. Actually, the whole idea of this G20 Connect is that we should be able to understand this whole issue of what we are doing, why India is doing it. As I said in the beginning, generally what happens is, such meetings, governments come, presidents, prime ministers, they come, meet and go away. But this time, when India became the president, what India decided was that instead of just government sitting and talking to another government, why not we involve the people? So we involve scientists, we involve doctors, we involve engineers, and there will be so many verticals. So wherever we are, can we find a solution to some problem that we are facing? If there is an engineering problem, a medical student may not be able to decide on what that engineering problem should be. But if there is a medical problem, a medical student can think in those terms. So we can give contributions, we can think about all these things. Whatever we feel India should do, we can inform the government. The agenda for the talks is not yet finalized. Like for example, next week, there is going to be a digital, how digitally India can help the world. There is going to be a talk on this in this place. Chennai IIT will host that program. Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore will host a program on science and G20. Some Jaipur University will host a talk on arts and G20, architecture and G20. So all these aspects of the world we are now trying to get. So wherever we are, we can think of something, our contribution, what G20 should really do, what India should really do, that we can think and inform the G20 office, secretariat. They will take every suggestion that is coming their way. That is the whole idea.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else with a question? You can raise your hand. Yeah, please.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, how this G20 initiative gonna help the youth of our nation? Help the youth of our nation.
Youth.
Yeah, exactly.
Youth, see, the most important element of India is what? The demographic dividend. India is the only country which has an average age of 25 to 35 for the next 30 years. So, if you go to any other country, what we call is the aged country. So, the average age of the people in that country is 60 plus. There are countries, I should not name them, for diplomatically we generally don't name these countries like this, but there are countries where the total population of that country is beyond 65, 70. That is what is happening. So now there are people who don't have anybody else in their house. That is the kind of problem they are facing. So what technological progress they will make, what economic progress they will make. So we have this advantage of youth. But only population will not help. So we have to also engage with the mind. Because mind is very important. We have to grow ourselves. India has to grow means India has to grow. The Indian youth has to grow. We have to enhance our skill. There are very good skills in outside world, let us say. How can we get it? How can we have technology transfer? We should never think that we have achieved everything in the world. We have not done that. But we are capable of achieving whatever we want to achieve. That is our capacity. Our intelligence, we all know how intelligent the Indian mind is. So we can have technology from outside country, we can have facilities from outside country, and we can create an environment here to such an extent that with the outside technology, we start producing and manufacturing things for the whole world, for us as well as the whole world. So there is so many things that the Indian youth can do. But basically, we will have to, our own skills will have to be improved. That is what we are aiming at. So G20 program will happen, as Professor said, it will happen in September and then everybody will go. But we will not stop only with that. We take that advantage of G20 and improve our standards, improve our technology, improve our involvement. That is what we are trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you. So, any other questions? So, if there is, you can raise your hand, please. Yeah.
Good morning, sir. I would like to know in what way this G20 would help the young entrepreneurs or the people who would like to become an entrepreneur at this time.
So, Professor Subhash specifically talked about trades. So, if he can answer this question, it will be great.
Actually, both the question which the previous person asked and your question, both are sort of interconnected. That's why I said that, the Y20 is part of G20. Among the set of negotiations or discussions which is going to happen, the Youth 20 is vital for most of the developing countries where the population is, very young. So, among that agenda which I listed, maybe because of the time I couldn't actually show you the slide, one particular agenda is about how to improve the startup system. Right? There will be a lot of discussions and debates And the Y20 involves bright young minds from across the countries who are selected, and they will be sort of deliberating on, improving the startup ecosystems, what we can learn from the other countries, right? So, and how to improve the entrepreneurship. Especially, there is a talk about, involving more women in, as a part of the entrepreneurial or the startup ecosystem. So, G20 is one of the key agendas is on industrial revolution, IR. Then part of it is the startup system. So there's a lot of deliberations which will happen in the next few months, and that's extremely crucial for the next 10, 20 years, how the global economy is going to shape up.
Got it, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, there is one person over there.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, most of the students from the top universities usually go abroad for their MS. So, as a part of G20, will there be more opportunities for their higher studies so that they can contribute to India, so that India will be developing more? Especially from the IITs, we can see more people immigrating to US for better opportunities. Will that change due to the presidency of G20?
Very, 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 very good question and very valid point also. See, this has been a very major problem in the. It's okay. Thank you. In the 60s and 70s, many people from the IITs left the country and went away. There was a terminology that we used at that time called brain drain. Most of you must have heard about it. Why this brain drain happens? Why people go? Technologically evolved people or skilled people, let us say, not only IIT. They go for mainly 2 or 3 reasons. One reason is there is not enough employment in India. That is one reason. For example, if you see some of the top hospitals in the world, they say nearly 40 to 50% of the nurses in these hospitals are from India. There are some nursing colleges where there are about an intake of 800 students. After 2 years or 3 years of training, out of that 800, 80% of those 800 students go out. Not that they don't get employment here, but there are better employment choices outside. That is one reason. Second reason is more pertaining to your question of IIT. The skilled IIT graduates, they go out for 2 reasons. One, their technology can be put to use only in those places because they have created that kind of an atmosphere, a research atmosphere. But we suffered all these things in the initial stages and initial years. But now in the last 2 decades, at least 20 years, we can say that India's educational progress, the higher education system in India has developed very well. There are Indian universities which are attracting foreign students. Now, after the student undergoes certain training, if the training is not useful for the industry in India, even then students go out. But today what has happened is, there is no science area of science and technology where India does not require these people. Some time back, 2 years back, there was an experiment which India conducted. What was that experiment? That experiment was, suppose if there is a moving object in the outer space, 36,000 feet from the Earth, beyond the stratosphere. And if it is a moving object, it has to be destroyed. How can you destroy it? You cannot take another satellite and go and destroy it. And you cannot have a space war. So if it has to be destroyed, it has to be destroyed from the Earth. Which means you will have to launch a missile which will go and hit it. Now, missile is a moving object. Missile has to travel 36,000 feet and it has to hit a moving object in this outer sky. What kind of rocket technology is this? Very evolved rocket technology, no? But you will be surprised that Indian engineers, scientists, missile technologists, they worked on it and they successfully carried out this experiment. Very successfully carried out. I will try and send that video one of these days to you. And we can say it was a DRDO technology was developed. Now this is the kind of technological application which India can do. So now India has got universities where such brains are required. India has got industry where these things are required. For example, I gave you the example of the vaccine. So India has got a lot of potential to make use of the intelligence and the skill that Indian universities are producing. But this has to increase. I am not saying this is enough. It has to increase. So that kind of incremental work is what we have to do. Now, G20 presidency gives an opportunity for us to fill up the blanks. Wherever we are less, all G20 countries can sit together and say that you are good in this particular technology, you give us that technology. For example, he mentioned, our professor Saab mentioned about digital use of UPI. So now what we are doing, we are now selling this UPI idea to other African countries. We had a meeting in Dubai where all African countries came. We told them that this is the idea. Now, you use MasterCard and Visa. Now what happens when you use MasterCard? You pay. After 45 days, you get credit, you pay. Correct? But some amount of money is deducted by the MasterCard. 2% of the transaction cost goes to them. You will be surprised. In UPI, which is an open-ended system, you don't pay anything. It is free. So when we go and tell the African countries that this system is free, they don't believe. They say, how can you give it free? America doesn't give anything free. England doesn't give anything free. China doesn't give anything free. But why are you giving free? Because we are telling we want to improve the condition. That's why we are giving free. So that attitude is now changing all over the world. So we will have to tell this to the other G20 countries also, so that we form a strong team where their technology we can use, our technology they can use. Of course, these systems will have to be put in place. We will have to do a lot of homework in this. Suppose if some technology people come and say that we are able to give, we are prepared to give this technology to you, but we should be able to take it also, no? So all those creating this kind of an environment we have to do. That is what we are doing. So this G20 presidency gives us an opportunity to look into all these problems and find a solution. This is a good question. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, there was one person over there.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. I'm very proud to be an Indian, so I have a curious question. For example, I love the notion of India being a peace-loving country and Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam, this one earth, one family. But if we see in examples like the dyeing industry, the garments, the Tirupur and other things, no developed countries, they allow the dyed water to go into water. While India, they are allowing us, India, to send their water to be polluted, and others say. If we are peace-loving and we have Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam, if that is the case with other countries, how can they allow us, like India being in the part of there, to be suffer like that? One thing. Two, while India is going over and beyond, sometimes I feel as, for example, the best quality of apples which we can get in the world is from Kashmir. But the first quality, if we are, whatever we are sending, it is still labeled as Washington apple and is sold for 300 kg, another thing. But still it is coming from Kashmir. I have seen people sticking the Washington sticker then and making it. So I'm just feeling like how to make other countries to come into this picture, like they also think India to be part of them as a Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam. Thank you.
Very, very good question again. See, what happens in general, I'm telling you, we are all proud of India, of course. There was always an opportunity where we can project our pride for the country. Every country has this, India also has got it. The attitude of the government also should be that every Indian is equal and every Indian is proud of it. We should not think that only politicians are proud of their country. Probably they are not. So it should be the other way around. So we never gave that opportunity. For a long time we thought, if somebody is doing business and if he is earning and if he is going in a car, we will say, oh, this fellow has got a car, that means he must be a chore. Otherwise he can't have. So that attitude was there. But so to a very large extent, it has changed. Now, there was a time when we had a lot of respect for nature. But what happened was, we adopted a particular lifestyle which was not conducive to our country. So because of that lifestyle, for example, industry. Now many countries wanted to save their own rivers. I will give you one example of, for example, sulfur-based industry, where sulfur is used. England did not want to use sulfur because the sulfur residue goes into the river Thames. So they said, this industry we will give to India. They gave to India. And we had no industry, so we took it. And all the effluents went to the sea, went to the river. If you see our own state, Chennai city, we had a very beautiful river. And the name of that river was Kuvam. Can you take bath in that river now? You will straight away have to go to the hospital. Why it happened? Because we wanted, one side we wanted development, on the other side we did not care for what happens after the effect. That attitude has to change. We have to be closer to the nature. We have to protect nature, otherwise nature will not protect you. That is why the theme of this G20 is, the Prime Minister has given a theme called LIFE, L-I-F-E, Life for Environment. So that you save the environment. Paryavaran they call. You save the environment, environment will save you. So if you want to cut one tree, you should plant at least 10 trees. For example, the Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh, we had a program in Madhya Pradesh, Bhopal. So the Chief Minister said all G20 countries had come, many representatives. So they said all of you will plant one tree. And the Chief Minister himself has made a decision to plant one tree per day. So 365 plant, that one person will plant. But it is not enough only if one fellow does it. Everybody has to do it. So in about 8 months' time, Madhya Pradesh, people of Madhya Pradesh have planted 78 lakh trees. 78 lakh trees. Suppose we all decide, on our birthday we will plant a tree. Everybody will have one birthday per year, no, at least. If not two. So according to Tamil calendar we can have, according to English calendar we can have. At least two birthdays we can plant. So 2 trees we can plant. Can we all decide? On our birthday we will go to hotel, we will have chocolate, we will have everything. Good, do that. But at least plant 1 tree. Can we do that? That is our contribution. See, we should not expect everything from the government. Government should do everything. If I am an industrialist, I want to put up a industry, will I do that? I should not do that. Now you asked about Tirupur textile industry. if I stop buying Indian textile and I will depend only on American textile or what is made in China, how will I help Tripur? Even if the government gives them tax-free benefit, they will not improve. So we should start thinking in those terms. We have to change our own lifestyle. That is the whole idea. Then we can force the government to do whatever they have to do. But very good question, very important question. Thank you.
Thank you. So, we are running out of time. Maybe just one question from the school students. Nobody had asked any question, so I think we should give them an opportunity. Yeah, please. Yeah.
Hi, sir. As a school student, I have one question. We are studying in schools, will G20 be benefit or useful to school students? If yes, in what way will it reach to them? Will they understand about it?
Very good. This question is very important for two reasons. Sit. Thank you. This question is very important for two reasons. One, this is the last question, correct?
Yes, sir. So, and following this, you have lunch.
Yes. So this is the benefit of G20. But what you have asked is very correct. See, we have not been able to connect. Every G20 meeting or everything will not directly come to school. We are not targeting that. It is correct. But schools can improve. A school system can improve. What we are learning in school today, that we can change that. So we can change the outlook of school curriculum. So that is what we are trying. So from that point of view, it's an important question. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you all for the very informative session. I would like to thank the expert speakers, Dr. Chari, Professor Subramania Raju, Professor Subhash for taking time and being present for this event. I also like to thank Syed Ali, who has been helping me with coordinating this and following up on various activities. I would also like to thank the staff of NPTEL who have actually made sure that all of this has happened, sent out invites and organized all of this. I would also like to thank the education officer and Mr. Munian and Ms. Santi, who had also helped in bringing the students, and the HM ma'am who has organized all this. So thank you all for attending the event. So I'll keep this brief and I'll end it here. So there is lunch following this session, so please have lunch. And the school students will be having an IIT visit after the lunch. So after you finish lunch, please come and assemble in this hall itself. I'll tell you the directions after that, okay? Please have lunch and come back to the... One mistake on my part. I'm sorry. There is a national anthem that has to be played before we end the event. I'm really sorry about that. Yeah, just 1 second, please. We'll play the national anthem and then end the event. Sorry, I request everybody to be silent. Sorry. Thanks.
जनगणमन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे.
Thank you all for attending the event. Please join us for lunch.